Sajan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Start off by telling us more about UST Global and the purpose and the mission of the company.
UST Global is an information technology services firm founded in Southern California. We serve primarily Fortune 500 companies and governments with their information technology needs. The mission of the company really is about four things. Create jobs by training people in technology and bringing in peace to those communities we operate. Since the very founding, we believe that social capital is as significant currency as any other capital you have, including financial capital. And we have such a great opportunity to take information technology jobs, which are the largest job creators in the world. Today, technology jobs are 70% of all new jobs in the world are STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, and math jobs. And information technology is the largest of all the STEM jobs. In fact, generates more jobs than all the other STEM disciplines combined. So it gives us great opportunity to look at, on one side, corporations and governments in great demand for technology talent. On the other side, we have uneducated employment all around the world. So if we could bring those jobs there, train them, you're satisfying two contingents, it's a win-win, and you create lasting transformation in those societies. So that's really the core of our company's mission.
Mm-hmm. How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors and all the other IT companies out there?
Well, there are great companies. We stand on the shoulders of some of the greatest companies. Technology companies in the last 30 years have sort of dominated business world by impacting so many things. So it's a great company to be amongst. But I think we look at our business in a unique way. First and foremost, we believe that we have fewer clients and we spend more attention. And that's unique because we consciously choose our customers just like customers choose us. There's a very conscious process. We think that we don't like the peanut butter strategy because in services business, when you're trusting your technology work with UST, it's a significant deal. And we believe that we can go deeper and wider, and we create that kind of strategy. And if you look at in the last 15 years, we have grown organically, with the fastest organically growing IT company in the world. We now have 15,000 employees, 99% organic. And it's testament, in my belief, to that simple strategy or that selective strategy of focusing on fewer clients but more attention. That's number one. Number two, differentiation really is the whole battle in our business is not just about customers, but it's also about talent. How do you attract and retain talent at scale? And the central philosophy of the company, that what we tell our leaders, what we tell our associates come into the company is the following. If you want to be successful, these are computer science grads, these are very educated talents. So whether they come to UST or go anywhere else, they can be successful. But the difference with UST is the distinction between being successful and being significant. And we let them know it's not the same. So in UST, we attempt to provide an environment where they can not only be successful, but they can also be significant. As a result, we have the lowest attrition that I know of in the industry. So this gets you those two things.
Mm-hmm. What percentage is that?
So our industry, if you look at any published statistics, goes through somewhere between 15 and 20% attrition. But if you look at real numbers in terms of not baselining based on the number of people you're hiring in the future, that attrition rates are actually high, upwards of 25%. Mm-hmm. For the last 15 years, we have maintained our attrition below 10%. So there's a huge difference between the attrition rate statistically, what's available in the industry versus what UST is doing.
You've said that social capital has to be a fundamental part of your organization. Tell us what you mean by that.
Since Industrial Revolution, if you look at the history, which is really a good window to study the course of businesses, companies initially that had financial capital, it's got funded better, usually was a better company and won out. 19th century to 20th century saw a little different type. So financial capital was important. Especially in the 20th century, companies with intellectual capital began to distinguish themselves. So if you look at the last 80s, 90s, the last 40 years, companies that has created the maximum market cap, 65% of all the market valuation were companies that are intellectual capital organized. So financial capital, so you find companies out of a garage with no capital inventing things and becoming multi-billion-dollar companies. So intellectual capital started trumping. But a new phenomenon has occurred, which is with the advent of the cell phones and universal access of internet, it has democratized businesses in ways and governments in a way that it has never been done in the past, which means that corporations today have to create a brand in the communities they operate. They have to have a social relationship with the customers. Ergo, more buying is going to be done because the peers, their friends tell you it's a good thing to buy, not because the media has an advertisement that it's a good thing to buy. It's a fundamental social shift. Consumers are going to buy from companies that not only do well, but also do good for the communities they operate. So both sides are fast figuring out what is a socially responsible company. And this, you will see this in Starbucks, with Walmart, with every major company is beginning to recognize the power of social capital. But I think that's not sufficient. While that's a good thing, many companies do this as a corporate social responsibility strategy or a philanthropy strategy. My fundamental belief is that while philanthropy is greatly admirable and something that companies ought to do, but I think it's more important to ensure that your central strategy, that your central business strategy is aligned to a social strategy. If it is not, then you always have, you make money, may not be in a socially responsible way, then you spend money sort of as a philanthropic. I think aligning the company to be socially responsible, and that's the new type of business. Look at Google, do no evil, right? It matters. Social capital is going to be the new currency of the world.
Tell us about some of the initiatives that you're working on based on this.
Yes, as I mentioned before, I think we believe that jobs, technology, training, and peace, all four has to go together. With this in mind, when we operate in countries or operate in communities, we look at models that will satisfy all four. And if it doesn't, we simply don't do it. There's enough in the world to match. So making that choice, an example of this phenomenon is when we started the business in North America. We were a startup company 15 years ago in Southern California, growing and trying to differentiate ourselves. And very quickly, we decided to locate some of our centers in Kerala, in India. At the time, here is a fact, there were no major corporations in Kerala. It's not a place where most corporations established any of their operations. We went there because there's a land of 30 million people and highly educated, but there were no industries. We became the largest company in Kerala, not technology, the largest company in Kerala in 2003. And since then, it has transformed the place that we live in. And we looked at it and said, well, this is very powerful. 3 years ago, I went down to Mexico, 120 million people. Mexico has its own $50 billion a year problem, as you know. And I met with President Vicente Fox, who was the previous president of Mexico. And in my view, Mexico is strategically positioned to take advantage of this incredible demand for talent. They have a great middle management system, but not necessarily educated in this new knowledge economy job. So I said, listen, here's my proposition. I'll come to Mexico. I will train 30,000 Mexicans in one shot and hire 10,000 of them, thereby making Mexico the second largest information technology center in Western Hemisphere. It sounded rather audacious at the time for many people. We started our operations in city of Leon, not in Mexico City, not in Guadalajara, wonderful, beautiful city, but it was a city where there weren't many jobs. What happened as a process is we started hiring people who are not traditionally, who had not gone to universities in a traditional manner for 4-year degrees, but what these kids had is something that the others didn't possess. It's an incredible desire to succeed. And with our unique assessment and training system, we were able to compensate, in some cases exceed, the kids who had a 4-year undergrad from a reputable university. But what these kids had, spectacularly so, was their desire to succeed and make a mark in their families. And in many cases, going back and talking to their friends or their parents even, who are involved in things that they shouldn't be involved. So by seeing the hope it created and the transformation, we were fascinated, and we were happy to be part of that change. We got an invitation from Prime Minister Rajoy in Spain. This is about 2 years ago. And he basically said, can we do Mexican Magic in Spain? So we went there. At the time, Spain had unemployment of 37% and underemployment of 60%. So going to Spain and looking at bringing technology jobs in Spain, so we launched a program to train and hire 5,000 people in Spain, which is the largest job creation in knowledge economy since Spanish War. And so we saw how the societies there got changed. Then recently we went to Rwanda, city of Kigali, and hired basically the children who were the victims of genocide. A couple from New York went there, adopted them, brought Carnegie Mellon, and put them through a school system. So they're graduating this year. And one of the things was, if these kids are graduating but no jobs available, uneducated employment is the second disappointment they're going to have in their life. So we simply decided to go there and give all the kids who are graduating jobs in UST. And why we did that is because, again, we believe talent is equally distributed, opportunities aren't. And when you see spots of this kind of incredible work that is being done, that's actually a source of great talent. So we did this, and finally, I think we're very proud to launch the program called Step It Up America. And the concept was very simple. We're doing these things all over the world, and we said, why can't we do this right here in the United States, where, again, there is incredible divide between social, economical divide. We looked at the statistics, and here are some of the stunning statistics. You know, you have 70% of all new jobs in the country will have heavy technology component. That is, you got to be a technologist in some manner to have those jobs. Minorities have an incredibly difficult time getting into these jobs. So the statistics of minority women in technology jobs today is less than 0.5%, which means that 70% of the new jobs, which is where wealth is made, is completely closed to an entirely huge sections of the population, which really isn't the American dream, which isn't what anybody desires. So we decided to act quickly, and we said, well, we're going to do it in small ways that we can do. We don't want to have government help, or, you know, we said as a private company, we are free to do what we can do to help. So we decided to go to 10 cities of America, train 100 minority women in each of those 10 cities in the first 10 months, so we will hire 1,000 women who never had a shot to get technology jobs. And they're women who had tried to get educated. Some have gone to community colleges, some have had other education, but they just never got a shot to participate in information technology. We started in Atlanta, then Philadelphia, Detroit, LA, Chicago, and today is the launch in New York. And interestingly, when we started this Step It Up, I really didn't think it would catch such national attention as the program. And it's fascinating because Vice President Joe Biden came to visit UST and met with these women who are getting educated, and went on public media. I believe it's the first time in the history of the United States a sitting vice president publicly endorsed a private company that is creating jobs at scale. And his point was the program so far was focused on training and praying. Hopefully they'll get a job. This is training and placing, which is significantly different. And our objective is to go to 10 cities for 1,000 women as phase one, and then to 50 cities for 5,000 women.
And all of these women are going to be employed by UST Global?
Will be employed by UST Global.
Okay. And how do you choose the women? Where do you choose them from? How do you recruit?
Number of sources. We work with local community colleges, local universities. There's a tremendous amount of campaign that's going on with, for example, Vice President in the last month publicly endorsed this program 7 times. It's on White House's homepage. I mean, you get a lot of folks who are looking at it, applying for these jobs through social media. But I think our system is, the way we look at it is when we go to a city, we accept 1,000 applicants, and then we have an assessment process that whittles that down to 400. So 600 gets eliminated for various reasons. These 400, we have face-to-face interviews, and we hire 100 out of it. So the ratio is 1 to 10, and that just explains there is so much talent to be had. But these 100 women have extraordinarily high, this is a very tough program. It's 90 teaching days, and in 90 teaching days we deliver 720 hours of core computer science curriculum, university caliber, as opposed to if you go through a 4-year undergraduate degree in computer science, the total number of hours that you spend on information technology is 240 hours. So when they come out of this program, they can compete with pretty much anybody out there. So this is not this is the most important thing, is this is not a handout. It's a helping hand, and they're going to compete head to head with anybody else out there.
How are you ensuring that they're going to be ready for the workforce?
So there is obviously this assessment, and this is intense training program for 90 teaching days. And in the training program, we look at 4 things. There is all about technological skills, that's important. Then there is everything about soft skills. How do you dress for success? The basic elements of what it is to be a confident member in the business world. So we focus on that. We focus on business skills during this time, and we also focus on teaching them things about the corporations, specific corporations they're targeted. So if they're going to work in ABC company, we will get them familiar with that company before they come to UST and become consultants for that company. So when they go and meet with the company, they not only know the technology, but also know about the corporation. They come across confident. Here's an example of the transformation. Last month, when we launched the program in Chicago, one of our main speakers was one of the graduates from this program. And she's never addressed, she's never spoken publicly, never had a chance. She's a community college student. She had something incredibly tragic happen to her. She had 3 kids, and once the worst nightmare happened to her, all 3 kids died in an accident. And so she was completely hopeless. And she gives a speech publicly about what it means to have a job that can transform her life. And that ability to stand up after 90 days, to come out of that kind of a tragedy and have the confidence, the courage to share that hope, was, to me, transformative. We had another student who spoke very eloquently about why this matters to her. So I think it's not just finding the job, but also being a confident citizen that can impact other people around those women. That actually matters.
As a business, how do you measure success of this program?
As in the services business, one of your fundamental measures is what your customer tells you. So I operate primarily in Fortune 500 space. And today, to celebrate or to launch this program, 30 of the Fortune 500 companies flew their top executives down. That kind of gives you the sense of 30 Fortune 500 companies simultaneously to just fly down from all over the world and participate in this program as the top executives, kind of tells you that customers, the buyers of the service, really endorse the program. And that's one measure. The second measure is the diversity that a company like UST has from having, this particular case, these women. We do a lot of work in digital transformation, where we go to companies, large consumer-based companies, and transform them so that consumers can buy goods and services. And without these women bring a perspective, a huge section of the society that most companies do not have today. So it's not only good because they're finding talent, but they're finding talent with diversity of ideas and experiences that will help them design things so that they can be more successful as a company. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's very easy to measure in that regard. Again, my fundamental philosophy is it has got to be good for my customer, it's got to be good for UST, and it's got to be good for the women who participate. And so in that sense, we think it's a very successful program.
What kind of feedback are you getting from your customers?
So one of the feedback, the largest company in the world, they sent 6 of their top executives today. they have taken 18 of the graduates and they were so delighted, they flew all the executives to say, this is fantastic, we want more. So far this year, 90% of all the companies we started with a set of graduates now have asked for more, which means that they're quite happy. The reactions go from, wow, we never thought this is the place where we can look for talent, to, in many cases, the global CIOs have come to us and said, this talent exceeds our expectations. In fact, sets a higher standard than some of our internal employees. So we've been very, very positive. For us, the mark of the great feedback is when clients, large buyers of these services, endorse this so publicly, because they think it is not only a good thing to do, but it's great for business.
What are your goals for this initiative in the next 5 years?
So our first goal was to get to 1,000 women and hire them and train them in 10 cities. And then second phase is to hire 5,000 women from 50 cities, the scale-up model. And you see, our real goal is that no minority women in America would be denied of a chance to get into a technology job. They may choose not to, but they will have the choice. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm. What's your overall vision for UST Global?
We think UST Global is an information technology business. We want to be the most impactful information technology services company in the world. We want to impact our clients by helping them understand their consumers better than anybody else. That's important, so we want to be the strategic partner for the clients we choose. We want to have fewer clients, but for those clients, we want to be relevant and strategic. The amount of money that is spent in information technology, that curve is going up. You see all the Silicon Valley companies becoming billion-dollar valuations, and I think we can play a huge role in connecting these pieces. So I think in the next 10 years, we want to be known in the business world as a company that brought jobs to places which need it most by training people in technology, by providing outstanding strategic services for large corporations and governments.
You also co-founded a software company in the past called Softek Systems. Tell us about your experience as an entrepreneur.
It was really a startup. It was my first company when I was going to school. That was where I got my education, so to speak. It was actually quite an extraordinary confluence of factors. I wanted to do motorbike racing, street racing, and my dad simply wouldn't allow me to ride the bike, so he wouldn't buy me the bike. I was going to school, so I didn't have much money. So I said, well, in that case, I'll go start a company. So that was it. So I went to my engineering school and ran a white paper competition to see who were the best talent, and then simply asked them, the kids who presented, who were actually the kids in the engineering school. And I told them, listen, you can work with me, and if I'm successful, I'd pay you. But this would be wonderful for you. So I got some of the best kids to work for me, and we created a system, software-driven, train other kids to get into medical schools and engineering schools, which is big business. So we use artificial intelligence this was a little bit before its time. And then the business grew, so we started franchising it. But one of the things I learned was, it was in southern India, and we didn't have the financial rigor. I learned a few things. First of all, when we have employees, you have to figure out how to make payroll, which they never teach you in an engineering school or in business school. So cash flow is very important, and I found very soon that you have to deal with customers that will pay you. There are a lot of people who will buy things from you, but they may not pay you. So those fundamentals, understood the relevance of customer service, understood why talent is important, in fact, in many cases, just as important as your customers. So these basic lessons that I learned came in very handy in my life since then. So it was really an accident that helped me start the first company.
And what was your experience like starting UST Global?
When we started, it was the time of Y2K was coming down, .com was happening. a lot of money flowing into technology. So it was a go-go time, if you remember those times. So we decided to start a company, and literally out of my garage. So I was actually in my garage for 2 years. When you start a company, you are the chief cook and the bottle washer. I mean, you have to do everything. But very soon, we were blessed with some incredible clients like Costco, like WellPoint, like some of the leading companies taking such an interest in UST Global to use their services that we kept growing. We kept having great talent. And so the startup experiences, you got to have the ability to stand the test of time, because it's not easy to get a business off the ground. It's not as glamorous as it seems, especially when you're trying to be successful. You have to have the fortitude, but also I think you have to have optimism, because times are going to be, there's always going to be difficult times, and you got to have optimism. But I think the truth learning from the experience is you got to have a purpose beyond self for companies to be really successful, because you have to have almost a magnificent obsession about what you do. Mm-hmm. So that's really the learning. And there's one more, I think, just because there are competitors does not mean you can be successful. My greatest role model in business is Sam Walton. Sam Walton didn't invent retail, he changed it forever. So you can go into existing business models and revolutionize them. So that was the other big learning.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide to build your career in the IT industry?
I went to computer science engineering in India, so it was a natural sort of career, but also saw very early the power of what a computer can mean for people. So we call digital divide today, but I thought it was the greatest thing that could democratize the world. I mean, a kid living in idealism, I thought this could truly change the world. And just 20 years later, it's evidenced by the fact that technology really is the biggest democratic tool. And so I decided to stay in computer science once I graduated.
Mm-hmm. What career advice would you give to people who want to rise to the top?
There's of course the philosophy of follow your passion. But I do think it's a little different. I would say follow your purpose. Passion comes from having a purpose. The distinction is significant. The distinction is, purpose is essentially having a passion for something bigger than oneself. And that is the foundation of all greatness.
How important has mentorship been throughout your career?
Very important. I think you want to talk to and interact with people who've been there, who've been through the journey before. And that gives incredible context to your own experience. I think finding mentors, getting their help in how you can navigate, not only in your professional life, but also how to manage other stakeholders like your communities, your families. I think it's very, very important. I think a lot of people don't use it, and it's one of the most easily available resources in the world. So I think mentorship is absolutely critical. In our Step It Up program, we have a designated mentor, and every student will have an executive in US corporation to be a mentor, which we are going to connect. So mentorship is actually in the heart of all the things we do.
Mm-hmm. How would you define a good leader?
There are 4 things we think are fundamental for any great leaders of the new age. Number 1, a great leader has to be essentially global, because almost every business has become global. So a leader has to have a global view and the ability to navigate globally. So that's number 1. Number 2, they truly have to have a passion to lead people. It doesn't come by accident. You have to have a desire, a passion, which means that you have to understand the people. So that ability to lead and understand people is the second thing. The third thing, which is going to be just as important for the future, is new leaders have to understand that there has to be a purpose for not only that leader, but also for the people that leader is leading, he or she. I think purpose-driven leadership is going to be very key for the future. And the fourth thing that we think is leaders have to be digitally confident, because almost everything you do, regardless of which industry you're going, whether you're a politician, a religious leader, a spiritual leader, a business leader, you're going to have to be digitally confident. So those are the 4 attributes we think a great leader must have.
How would you compare the education system in the US versus some of the other parts of the world?
We are in 27 countries. It's an area of great interest to me. Educational system, by and large, is undergoing tremendous change. It used to have a lot of nationalistic boundaries. It still does, but I think that boundaries are becoming a little less relevant. US system is quite interesting because if you look at the number of undergraduate students in STEM every year in the country of United States, we graduate roughly 140,000 kids. Now that's an alarmingly small number compared to the fact that we have 300 million people in the country. So you have to say, what happens to the rest of the kids? They're not smart enough, they're not motivated enough, while businesses need people in thousands, in hundreds of thousands. So what's the real gap? So I think the university system might have become a little too difficult, in some cases out of touch with what's really needed. You see that phenomenon in the US. I see somewhat similar phenomenon around the world where their curriculums are, the educational instructional medium for education moves at a much smaller pace than the evolution of the content. So you're teaching something that was 30 years ago, has almost no relevance to what is going on today, and certainly has no relevance 10 years from now after you learn it. So there's a big chasm between the two. So the educational system is changing. So things like Khan Academy and things more revolutionary, where one-to-one learning, democratic learning, where you can share the content, you can create use of content for learning, and using multimedia facilities effectively. So you don't have to be constrained in the traditional classroom, using virtual reality. So here's an example. Stanford had an open course in computer science that was done, I think, a few years ago. It was open, and they expected less than 1,000 students to apply. 180,000 students applied. It's interesting, the Stanford Computer Science, most of the kids who were graded, whose papers were graded, the top grades belong to kids sitting in Africa and India and other places of the world. So it kind of tells you that the way educational system is going to be delivered in the future is going to fundamentally change. So I see this all over the world.
So these are some of the things that you think can help bridge the skills gap.
Absolutely. There was a big chasm between the universities and the academic world and the business and the government. This is changing slowly because most presidents of countries now they have a specific policy for human capital development, and there usually is a high-ranking official in charge of it. There are policies that are formulated specifically for the kinds of things we are talking about, like spotting talent gap. There are local governments in the United States, many states, many cities have a coalition between businesses and educational institutions at local levels to fill the gap. So the attempt is made. So the first thing is the awareness that the attempt is made. And the second thing is to make education more available, you needed the whole technological aspect. And that just happened with the advent of cell phones, internet, and that's why it's so exciting because, again, just because a kid is born in New York to a wealthy family versus some kid in Leon in Mexico, they have pretty much equal access to education in the future. And that's my dream. I mean, that's happening right in front of our eyes.
Mm-hmm. What is it that you look for when you hire people?
We look for attitude and aptitude in that order. We think there's a tremendous amount of stuff made about intelligent quotient. You know, a lot of companies think about hiring the smartest people. I think that's important to hire good people, but I think I focus more not about hiring the smartest people or the best people, but bringing the best out of them once they're hired. That's where a lot of companies sort of have difficulty. So the hiring is, you know, we look at aptitude, we look at attitude, there's a whole series of tests we apply, but then you have to bring in with human capital systems, you have to get the best out of them.
What challenges do you face in hiring the right talent?
The educational institutions, since in many cases it's not adequate, we have to apply our own highly specialized training, sometimes very extended training, to prepare them for jobs that we need. So that's the big challenge. It can be very, very expensive. So that's one. The second thing is the whole last 30 years, most corporations have somewhat lost the element of loyalty. And as a result, employees tend to be less loyal and companies tend to be less loyal. It's sort of an unregulated, free-wheeling system. I think having that sense of belonging, purpose, and loyalty to the system, healthy dose of is good. So that's another challenge we face. And finally, the incredible lack of diversity in the existing workforces poses a serious challenge. We're trying to solve that problem through various measures. However, that problem is big, and it's something that it might take decades to solve.
Tell us about one of your most memorable moments as CEO of UST Global.
Right when we were started, a few months into the company was becoming very expensive to run. And it was no longer sufficient. Your credit card and your mortgage is no longer sufficient. You really have to make money. In one of those times, we were having real trouble making payroll. It's fascinating because I was having trouble, meaning I was really worried how I'm going to meet the obligation, and that I had to make the payroll the next day, within 24 hours. And the previous day, I go and meet with the founder of another company, and I convinced her to use UST Global as a service provider. And but after the meeting, I was still a little desolate because I still haven't had the money to get through the payroll. The next morning, I tried everything, but I didn't have any solution. Next morning, I woke up. I still didn't have a solution. Around noon, I heard a knock on the door. It was a FedEx, and I got a FedEx package. And in that package, there was a check for $250,000. So I thought it was a mistake and called. It was from this company I met just the previous day. So the CEO said, "That's an advance for your work that you're going to do with me." And I said, "Well, we don't have a contract." He said, No, keep it. We'll get the contract in the next 48 hours, which is extremely gracious of her. I don't know if she realized that simple act of trust and belief might have been so significant in the history of the company. So these things happen in an entrepreneur's life, which in some ways are inexplicable. Those are the most memorable moments.